Noah Parker stood in the hospital corridor, his son's small hand gripping his, when the doctor delivered the news that would shatter his carefully constructed world. Mrs. Lynn had weeks, maybe days. But it wasn't the prognosis that made his breath catch. It was the envelope the nurse handed him, sealed with his neighbor's shaky handwriting. For Noah, open only after you meet her. Inside was a photograph of a woman he'd never seen, a cafe address, and a single line that made his chest tighten. I'm dying, but you're still living like a ghost. Promise me you'll try. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your city in the comments below and hit that like button. I want to see how far this story travels. Now, let me tell you about the neighbor who refused to let a good man waste his second chance. The rain came down in sheets that Thursday afternoon, turning the Seattle streets into rivers of reflected neon and blurred headlights. Noah Parker sat in his truck outside Lincoln Elementary, 10 minutes early as always, watching parents dart through the downpour to collect their children. His windshield wipers beat a steady rhythm, the only sound besides the drum of rain on metal and the occasional rumble of thunder rolling in from Puget Sound. He checked his phone. No new messages. Good. That meant no emergencies at the construction site, no calls from his son's teacher, no unexpected complications in the careful routine he'd built over the past 3 years. Routine was safety. Routine was control. Routine meant he could manage the impossible task of being both mother and father to a 6-year-old boy who still sometimes cried for the parent who would never come home. The school bell rang, muffled by distance and weather, and children began streaming out under the covered walkway. Noah straightened in his seat, eyes scanning for the bright red backpack he'd bought at the start of the school year. There, Lucas emerged with 2 other boys, laughing at something, his jacket unzipped despite Noah's reminder that morning to keep it closed. The sight of that careless joy, that momentary forgetting, made something twist in Noah's chest. A good twist. The kind that reminded him why he kept going. Lucas spotted the truck and his face lit up. He said something to his friends, then sprinted through the rain, backpack bouncing, sneakers splashing through puddles with the kind of abandon that only children possessed. Noah leaned over and pushed open the passenger door. Dad! Lucas scrambled in, soaking wet and grinning. Tyler said his mom is taking them to the Science Museum this weekend, and they have a dinosaur exhibit with moving robots and everything, and he asked if I could come. Can I, please? Noah helped him with the seatbelt, noting the grass stains on his jeans and what looked like paint on his sleeve. We'll see. Did you have a good day? It was awesome. We did art, and I painted a spaceship, and Mrs. Henderson said mine was very creative, and at recess we played astronauts, and Lucas paused, his enthusiasm dimming slightly. Oh, and Mrs. Henderson wants to talk to you. She said it's not bad just to check in about my reading. Noah pulled into traffic, mentally adding another item to tomorrow's list. Okay, buddy. I'll email her tonight. Are we going to Mrs. Lynn's after? Not today. I've got to finish some paperwork and you've got homework. Lucas slumped slightly but didn't argue. He'd learned too young that when Dad said no, there was usually a reason. They drove in comfortable silence for a while, the radio playing softly, Lucas humming along to a song he'd heard enough times to memorize. Their neighborhood sat on the edge of the city, where Seattle's urban density gave way to quieter streets lined with older houses that had seen better decades. Noah pulled into the driveway of their small craftsman bungalow, the one he and Sarah had bought 5 years ago with dreams of renovations and family dinners and growing old together. He'd painted the shutters himself last summer, dark blue to match Lucas's favorite color. Small victories. Mrs. Lynn was on her porch next door, as she often was in the late afternoons, despite the rain. She sat in her wicker chair under the overhang, a blanket across her lap, watching their arrival with the kind of quiet attention she'd shown them since the funeral. She was 83, Chinese-American, widowed for a decade, and had appointed herself their unofficial guardian angel without ever asking permission. Lucas waved enthusiastically. Hi, Mrs. Lynn. She waved back, her smile soft and knowing. Noah nodded in greeting, noting she looked thinner than last week, more fragile. He made a mental note to check on her this weekend, maybe bring over the leftover lasagna he'd made in 2 large portions because he still cooked for 3 instead of 2. Inside, the house smelled faintly of the morning's coffee and the lavender air freshener he used because Sarah had loved lavender. Lucas dumped his backpack by the door, a habit Noah had given up trying to break, and headed straight for the kitchen. Can I have a snack? Apple or carrots? Can I have cookies? After dinner and after homework. Lucas grabbed an apple with theatrical reluctance, then settled at the kitchen table with his workbook while Noah started preparing dinner. Chicken stir-fry tonight, using the recipe Sarah's mother had taught him, one of the few dishes he'd mastered that Lucas would eat without complaint. He moved through the familiar motions, chopping vegetables, heating the wok, measuring soy sauce, while half listening to Lucas narrate his homework. Dad, how do you spell astronaut? Noah spelled it out, focusing on the sizzle of garlic and ginger hitting hot oil. Dad, why do we have homework? It's not fair. Because that's how you learn things. Keep working. Dad, after dinner, can we play that building game? We'll see how much time we have. This was their rhythm. Question, answer, the gentle deflection of a 6-year-old's endless negotiations. Noah had learned to find peace in it, this constant low-level conversation that kept loneliness at bay while never quite touching the deeper silences. Dinner was quiet by adult standards, chaotic by the standards of a household with a young child. Lucas talked about dinosaurs, about the spaceship he'd painted, about how Tyler's older brother had a tree fort and wasn't that the coolest thing ever. Noah listened, responded at appropriate intervals, reminded Lucas to eat his vegetables, and felt the familiar exhaustion that came with single parenthood settling into his bones. After dinner, after Lucas's bath, after the bedtime story and the negotiations about one more chapter and the final request for water, Noah finally closed his son's bedroom door and stood in the hallway, letting the silence wash over him. This was the hardest part of the day, the hours between Lucas's bedtime and his own, when the house felt too big and too quiet and too full of memories that ambushed him in familiar corners. He was heading downstairs when his phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Noah, this is Clara Evans. Mrs. Lynn gave me your number. She said you agreed to meet me at Morrison's Cafe tomorrow at 2 p.m. I hope this is okay. I know this is probably awkward. Noah stared at the message, his jaw tightening. He had absolutely not agreed to any such thing. He typed back quickly. I think there's been a misunderstanding. I didn't agree to meet anyone. The response came within seconds. Oh no, I'm so sorry. Mrs. Lynn told me I should have confirmed with you first. Please forget I said anything. I'm really embarrassed. Noah rubbed his face, already knowing where this was going. He walked to his front door, grabbing a jacket, and crossed the wet lawn to Mrs. Lynn's porch. The lights were still on. She answered on the second knock, her face carefully innocent. Noah, what a nice surprise. Mrs. Lynn. He kept his voice gentle but firm. Did you give my number to someone named Clara Evans? Her expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Calculation, determination, and something that looked almost like urgency. Come in, please. It's cold. I'm fine out here. What's this about a meeting tomorrow? She sighed, pulling her cardigan tighter. You're going to be angry. I'm not angry. I'm confused. Then come inside and I'll explain. 5 minutes. Against his better judgment, Noah followed her into the living room that smelled of jasmine tea and old books. The space was immaculately kept, every surface dusted, family photographs arranged with careful precision. He'd been here dozens of times over the past 3 years, for dinners she'd insisted he and Lucas needed, for holiday cookies, for the kind of casual, neighborly help that had quietly become essential to his survival as a single parent. Mrs. Lynn gestured to the sofa and settled into her armchair with a slowness that betrayed her age. I'm dying, Noah. The words hit him like cold water. What? Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. They gave me 3 months, maybe 4. That was 6 weeks ago. She said it matter-of-factly, as if discussing the weather, but her hands trembled slightly as she folded them in her lap. Please don't look at me like that. I've made my peace. Noah sat down heavily, his mind racing. Mrs. Lynn, Does anyone know? What can I do? Do you need... She held up one hand, stopping him. I have a caregiver, Clara. She comes 3 times a week, helps with the things I can't do anymore. She's wonderful, patient, kind, and very alone, like you. Mrs. Lynn, let me finish. I've watched you for 3 years, Noah. You're a good father, a good man, But you're living like someone serving a sentence, counting down days instead of building a life. Lucas needs a mother, you need a partner, and Clara needs... She paused, searching for words. She needs someone who sees her. Noah felt heat rising in his face, equal parts frustration and something uncomfortably close to shame. You can't just arrange people's lives like this. I don't even know this woman. Exactly. That's why you should meet her. 2 o'clock tomorrow, Morrison's Cafe. Just coffee, just conversation. If there's nothing there, you walk away and I promise never to meddle again. And if I don't go? Mrs. Lynn met his eyes with a steadiness that made him look away first. Then I'll die knowing I let you waste the second chance my own husband never got. When Mr. Lynn died, I had 40 good years behind me. You had 7 with Sarah. 7, Noah. You're 32 years old. You have decades ahead of you. Don't spend them hiding. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken arguments Noah didn't have the energy to voice. Finally, he stood. I need to think about this. That's all I ask. Think about it. And Noah? She waited until he turned back. Clara doesn't know I'm sick. I haven't told her. She thinks I'm just fragile. I'd like to keep it that way for now. Noah nodded slowly, his throat tight. I'll check on you this weekend. I know you will. You always do. He walked home through the drizzle, his mind churning. Inside, he poured himself a whiskey he didn't really want and sat in the dark living room, Sarah's photograph on the mantel barely visible in the shadows. He'd stopped talking to her picture after the first year, when he'd realized it was making things harder instead of easier. But tonight, old habits pulled at him. What am I supposed to do? He whispered to the darkness. She's dying, and she's trying to set me up like it's some kind of last wish. How am I supposed to say no to that? The house offered no answers, just the familiar creaks of settling wood and the distant hum of the refrigerator. Noah finished the whiskey, checked the locks, and climbed the stairs to bed, knowing sleep would be slow to come. The next morning arrived with weak sunlight and Lucas's usual boundless energy. Noah moved through the routine, breakfast, backpack check, the drive to school, on autopilot, his mind elsewhere. He dropped Lucas off, headed to the construction site he was managing, and spent the morning reviewing plans and fielding questions from his crew, all while the clock ticked toward 2 o'clock. At 1:30, he made a decision. He would go. Not because he wanted to, not because he believed anything would come of it, but because Mrs. Lynn was dying and this small thing, this uncomfortable, awkward meeting, was apparently important to her. He owed her that much. Morrison's Cafe sat in a quiet neighborhood near Green Lake, the kind of place with mismatched furniture, local art on the walls, and a menu that featured more tea varieties than coffee. Noah arrived 5 minutes late, deliberate in his timing, and spotted her immediately. Clara Evans sat by the window, her hands wrapped around a mug, staring out at the lake with an expression of profound weariness. She was younger than he'd expected, early 30s maybe, with dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail and the kind of face that was pretty in an unassuming way, as if she'd never bothered to notice or care about her own appearance. She wore scrubs under a worn jacket, and there was something about her posture, shoulders slightly hunched, as if bracing against weight, that made Noah's chest tighten with unwanted recognition. She looked how he felt, tired, guarded, going through motions. He approached the table and she glanced up, her brown eyes widening slightly. Noah? Clara. He sat down across from her, suddenly aware of how strange this was. Two strangers forced together by a dying woman's matchmaking scheme. I should apologize. Mrs. Lynn didn't actually ask me about this. She just decided. A small, rueful smile touched Clara's lips. That sounds like her. She's been trying to get me to meet nice people for months now. I thought she meant other caregivers, not, oh, she gestured vaguely between them. This. A waitress appeared and Noah ordered coffee he didn't want just to have something to do with his hands. When they were alone again, an awkward silence settled over the table. Clara broke it first. We don't have to do this. I mean, I know this is weird and forced, and I'm sure you have better things to do on a Friday afternoon. I do, actually, but she's dying, so here I am. Claire's face went pale. What? Noah froze, realizing his mistake. You didn't know. No, She said she was fine, just needed help with daily things because of arthritis, and Clara's voice cracked slightly. When did she tell you? Last night, pancreatic cancer. She said she has a few months. Noah watched Clara process this, saw the professional mask slip into place over personal grief, a transformation he recognized from his own life. I'm sorry. I thought you knew. No. Clara swallowed hard, her hands tightening around her mug. No, she didn't tell me. Jesus, that explains so much. The waitress returned with Noah's coffee, oblivious to the tension. Noah waited until she left, then said quietly, She asked me not to tell you. I screwed up. Clara shook her head. Don't. I'm glad you did. I can't believe she stopped, seemed to gather herself. We should probably talk about why she set this up instead of the fact that she's dying, because if I think too hard about that right now, I'm going to lose it. Noah appreciated the honesty. Fair enough, though I'm not sure what we're supposed to talk about. I assume she told you I'm a widower with a kid? She mentioned you had a son. She didn't mention, I'm sorry, that must be incredibly hard. 3 years ago, car accident. The words came out flat, automatic from repetition. What about you? She said you were alone, which I realize is maybe the worst way to describe someone. Clara laughed, a short, bitter sound. No, that's accurate. Divorced 2 years ago, no kids. I work as a hospice nurse and a private caregiver. Mrs. Lynn is one of my clients, though honestly, she's become more like... She stopped, her expression shifting. She's special to me, and apparently very determined to fix what she sees as broken in my life. Same. She's been feeding me and Lucas since the funeral. I think she's decided we need saving. Do you think we do? The question caught Noah off guard. He studied Clara more carefully, the exhaustion in her eyes, the defensive set of her shoulders, the way she held herself like someone expecting disappointment. I think we're managing. Whether that's the same as being okay is a different question. Clara nodded slowly. That's probably the most honest answer I've heard in a long time. They fell quiet again, but it felt less awkward now, more like two people caught in the same strange situation trying to make sense of it. Noah sipped his coffee, which was better than he'd expected, and watched the lake through the window. A group of teenagers were attempting to paddleboard despite the cool weather, wobbling and laughing, falling into the water with the kind of fearlessness that comes before life teaches you to be careful. Can I ask you something? Clara's voice pulled him back. And you can absolutely tell me it's none of my business. Go ahead. Do you date? Since your wife died, I mean. Noah set down his cup. No, I tried once, about a year ago. A woman from the construction company set me up with her sister. It lasted one dinner. I couldn't... He searched for words. I couldn't be present. I was just going through motions, and she could tell. It felt dishonest. So I stopped trying. Clara was quiet for a moment. My ex-husband cheated on me with someone from his office. When I found out, you know what the worst part was? It wasn't the betrayal. It was realizing I didn't even care that much. We'd already been going through motions for so long that the affair was almost a relief, like permission to admit what we both knew wasn't working. That sounds lonely. It was, still is. She met his eyes directly. I work with dying people every day. I help families through the worst moments of their lives. And then I go home to an empty apartment and eat dinner in front of Netflix and tell myself I'm fine, that I'm dedicated to my work, that I don't have time for relationships, that I'm just taking care of myself. But the truth is, I'm scared. Scared of trying again and failing again. Scared of letting someone in and having them see how much work I still am. Noah felt something shift in his chest, a recognition so deep it was almost painful. I'm scared Lucas will get attached to someone and then lose them, that I'll open up space in our life for another person and it'll fall apart and he'll be the one who pays the price. He's already lost his mother. How do I risk putting him through that again? So we're both hiding, just in different ways. Yeah. Noah smiled, a sad, tired expression. Mrs. Lynn was right. We are alone. Clara laughed again, more genuine this time. She's too smart for her own good, and apparently very committed to meddling. They talked for another hour, the conversation flowing more easily than Noah had expected. Clara told him about her work, about the privilege and heartbreak of hospice care, about the families who let her in and the ones who kept her at arm's length. Noah told her about Lucas, about the strange experience of learning to be a mother and father simultaneously, about the small victories of packed lunches and completed homework and bedtimes that didn't end in tears. They discovered small connections. Both loved hiking but hadn't been in years. Both missed cooking for other people. Both felt like they were performing competence while barely holding things together. By the time Noah checked his watch, it was 3:30, and he needed to pick up Lucas. "I should go," he said, reaching for his wallet. "This is on me," Clara said quickly, "since I'm the one who texted you first. We're splitting it. This whole thing is weird enough without debt hanging over it." Clara smiled. Fair point. They paid and walked out together into the afternoon light. Noah turned toward the parking lot, then hesitated. "I don't know what Mrs. Lynn expected to happen here, but this was not terrible." "High praise," Clara said dryly. "Can I be honest? Please. I don't think I'm ready for this. Whatever this is, I like you. You seem like a genuinely good person, which is rare. But I'm not in a place where I can handle something complicated, and a widower with a young son is about as complicated as it gets." Noah felt relief and disappointment in equal measure. "I get it. I'm not ready either. Lucas has to come first." "So we're in agreement. This was a one-time thing. We satisfied Mrs. Lynn's meddling, and we can both go back to our separate, manageable lives." Exactly. They stood there for a moment, and Noah had the strangest sense of saying goodbye to something that never started, a possibility folding back into nothing before it could fully form. "Take care of yourself, Noah." "You too, Clara." He drove to Lucas's school, parked in the pickup line, and waited with all the other parents for the bell to ring. His phone buzzed, a text from Clara. "For what it's worth, I think Sarah would be proud of the father you are." Noah stared at the message, his throat tight. He started to type a response, deleted it, started again. Finally settled on, "Thank you. That means more than you know." Lucas appeared at the door, searching for the truck, his face lighting up when he spotted it. Noah watched his son run toward him through the afternoon crowd, backpack bouncing, shoelaces untied, completely unaware that his father had just spent 2 hours with a stranger his dying neighbor thought might fix what was broken in their lives. The weekend passed in familiar routines: grocery shopping, laundry, a trip to the park where Lucas made friends with other kids in that easy way children had. Sunday evening, Noah took lasagna next door and found Mrs. Lynn on her porch, wrapped in blankets despite the mild weather. "You look tired," she said when he sat down. "I'm always tired. How are you feeling?" "Like I'm dying." She said it lightly, but Noah saw the truth in the lines around her eyes. "Did you meet her?" "I did." "And?" "And nothing. We had coffee, we talked. We agreed we're not interested in anything complicated." Mrs. Lynn nodded slowly. "I see. You're disappointed." "No, I'm hopeful. We're not going to see each other again." "Maybe not. But you talked. You were honest with each other. That's more than you've done with anyone else in 3 years." She reached over and patted his hand with surprising strength. "I'm not trying to fix you, Noah. Neither of you is broken. But you're both so busy protecting yourselves that you've forgotten how to live. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is let someone see us as we really are." Noah wanted to argue, but exhaustion won out. "I need to get Lucas to bed." "Of course. Thank you for the lasagna. And Noah?" She waited until he turned back. "Thank you for going. I know it was hard." "She knows you're sick. I accidentally told her." Mrs. Lynn's expression flickered, surprised, then something that might have been relief. "Good. She shouldn't have to grieve alone when the time comes." Noah went home, his mind churning with thoughts he didn't want to examine too closely. That night, after Lucas was asleep, he found himself searching through old photo albums, looking at pictures of Sarah, of their life together, of the person he'd been before grief had reshaped him into someone harder and more afraid. His phone buzzed. "Clara, I know we said one time, but Mrs. Lynn asked if I could help her with something next Saturday and mentioned you might be around. No pressure, but if you're there, maybe we could talk again. Just as friends. I think we could both use one of those." Noah stared at the message for a long time. Everything in him wanted to say no, to keep the boundaries firm, to protect the small, safe world he'd built. But Mrs. Lynn's words echoed in his mind. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is let someone see us as we really are. He typed back, "Okay, just as friends." Outside, rain started to fall again, soft and steady against the windows. Noah sat in the dark living room, listening to the rhythm of water and the quiet breathing of his sleeping child upstairs, and wondered if maybe, just maybe, he was ready to stop hiding after all. Saturday morning arrived with unexpected sunshine, the kind that made Seattle residents abandon their plans to rush outside before the weather changed its mind. Noah woke to Lucas bouncing on his bed, already dressed in mismatched clothes he'd clearly chosen himself. "Dad, Dad, Dad, can we go to the park? Please? It's sunny, and Mrs. Lynn said she might make dumplings later, and I want to help. And Tyler texted me. Well, his mom texted for him. And they're going to the zoo, but I said maybe we could go next time because I want to help Mrs. Lynn. Is that okay?" Noah groaned, pulling a pillow over his face. "What time is it?" 7:30. That's basically the middle of the day. That's basically still nighttime on a Saturday. But Noah was already sitting up, knowing resistance was futile. "All right, buddy, give me 20 minutes to wake up and we'll figure out the day." Lucas zoomed out of the room with the energy of someone who'd slept 10 hours and woke up ready to conquer the world. Noah moved more slowly, his body protesting the week's accumulated exhaustion. 48 hours until Monday felt simultaneously like forever, and not nearly enough time. Downstairs, Lucas had already attempted breakfast, evidenced by the cereal scattered across the counter and milk pooling near the sink. Noah cleaned up without comment, made coffee, and tried to organize his thoughts around the knowledge that Clara would be at Mrs. Lynn's today. Just as friends, he reminded himself. Two people being friendly because a dying woman wanted them to be. "Dad, you're staring at nothing again." Noah blinked. Lucas was watching him with that too perceptive expression kids got when their parents were being weird. "Sorry, buddy. What were you saying?" "I was asking if we could get a dog. Tyler has a dog and it's really cool and I'd take care of it and walk it every day, I promise." "We've talked about this. Dogs are a lot of work." "I do all the work. You can't even remember to put your backpack away." Lucas deflated slightly, then rallied. "What if I prove I can be responsible? What if I do all my chores for a whole month without you asking?" Noah hid a smile behind his coffee mug. "Tell you what, you do that and we'll talk about it again. No promises." "Yes!" Lucas punched the air like he'd just won a negotiation, which Noah supposed he kind of had. They spent the morning at the park, where Lucas found a group of kids playing soccer and Noah found a bench with a good view and tried not to think about the afternoon. Other parents dotted the playground, mostly mothers, a few fathers, all of them looking various degrees of tired and caffeinated. Noah recognized a few faces from school pickups, exchanged polite nods, but didn't engage. He'd learned early in his widowhood that playground small talk often led to questions he didn't want to answer. His phone buzzed. "Clara. I'm heading to Mrs. Lynn's around 2. She wants help organizing her photos, which I suspect is code for something else entirely. Fair warning. I think she's plotting." Noah typed back. "She's always plotting. I'll be there around 2:30 with Lucas. He loves helping her cook. See you then. And Noah, thanks for giving this another chance, even if it's just friendship." He pocketed the phone, watching Lucas sprint across the field, his joy so pure and uncomplicated it made Noah's chest ache. This was why he'd stayed closed off, why he'd built walls around their small life. Lucas deserves stability, consistency, a father who didn't introduce chaos or uncertainty or the possibility of more loss. But he also deserves to see you happy, a voice whispered in the back of Noah's mind, sounding suspiciously like Sarah. He pushed the thought away. By 2:30, they were walking up Mrs. Lynn's porch steps, Lucas carrying the container of cookies they'd stopped to buy because showing up empty-handed felt wrong. Noah knocked, and Clara answered, wearing jeans and an oversized sweater, her hair down for the first time since he'd met her. She looked younger, softer, and something in Noah's chest did a small, unexpected flip. "Hi," she said, smiling at Lucas. "You must be Lucas. I'm Clara." Lucas, normally shy with strangers, looked her over with serious consideration. "Did you really meet my dad because Mrs. Lynn told you to?" Claire's eyebrows shot up. Lucas! Noah felt heat creep up his neck. That's not… We don't… But Clara was laughing. Yes, I did. Your neighbor's very determined. Lucas nodded gravely. She's like that. Once she wanted me to eat bok choy, and I said no, and she made it 5 different ways until I liked one. That sounds exactly like her. Come in. She's in the kitchen pretending she doesn't need help. The house smelled like ginger and garlic, and they found Mrs. Lynn at the table surrounded by old photo albums, a shoebox of loose pictures, and what looked like several decades' worth of memories spread across every surface. She looked up as they entered, her face carefully innocent. Oh, Noah, Clara, what a surprise! And Lucas, perfect timing. I need someone with young eyes to help me sort these. Mrs. Lynn, Noah said dryly, you texted us both to come at the same time. Did I? How forgetful of me. She gestured to the chairs. Sit, sit. Lucas, there are dumplings warming in the oven. Help yourself. Lucas needed no further encouragement. He grabbed a plate and settled in with the dedication of someone approaching a serious mission. Clara sat across from Mrs. Lynn, picking up a faded photograph of a young couple on a beach. Is this you and Mr. Lynn? 1968, our honeymoon in California. Mrs. Lynn's voice softened. I was 23 and thought I knew everything. He was 25 and kind enough to let me think so. Noah remained standing, feeling like an intruder in this moment of shared intimacy. But Mrs. Lynn caught his eye and patted the seat beside her. Don't lurk, Noah. You're making me nervous. He sat, and for the next hour they sorted through decades of memories while Lucas provided running commentary between dumplings. Mrs. Lynn narrated her life in photographs, her wedding, early years in Seattle, the children she and her husband had raised who now lived scattered across the country. Clara asked gentle questions, the kind born from professional experience with end-of-life reminiscence, but her interest was clearly genuine. This one, Mrs. Lynn held up a photo of herself as a young mother, holding a toddler. This is my daughter, Michelle. She wants to fly out when… At the end. I told her not yet. I'm not ready for goodbyes. The room went quiet. Lucas, sensing the shift in mood, looked between the adults with concern. Clara reached across the table and squeezed Mrs. Lynn's hand. You tell her when you're ready. No one else gets to decide that. You're a good girl. Too good, maybe. You spend all your time taking care of other people. Who takes care of you? Clara's smile was tight. I'm fine. That's what everyone says who isn't fine. Mrs. Lynn turned to Noah. And you. Always carrying everything alone. Sarah wouldn't want that. Noah stiffened. Mrs. Lynn, Dad talks to Mom's picture sometimes, Lucas announced, completely unaware of the grenade he'd just lobbed into the conversation. Late at night when he thinks I'm sleeping, he tells her about his day. The silence was excruciating. Noah wanted to disappear, to explain, to tell Lucas not to share things like that. But Clara was looking at him with such naked understanding that words failed. My ex-husband took everything in the divorce, she said quietly. The house, most of our friends, even the dog. But you know what I kept? The coffee mug he bought me on our first anniversary. I use it every morning, and I don't know if that's moving on or holding on, but I can't seem to stop. Mrs. Lynn nodded. Grief is strange. It makes us do things that don't make sense to anyone else. But here's what I've learned. It doesn't get smaller. We just get bigger around it. We make room for new things without discarding the old. Lucas, bored with adult conversation, had moved to the window where Mrs. Lynn's cat was sunbathing. Noah watched his son pet the old tabby with careful gentleness, completely at ease in this house that had become a second home. He's comfortable here, Claire observed. That's rare for kids his age. Mrs. Lynn has been our safety net since Sarah died. She never pushed, never demanded anything, just showed up with food and patience and time. Noah's voice was rough. I don't know what we would have done without her. You would have survived, Mrs. Lynn said firmly. But I'm glad you didn't have to survive alone. Now, I'm tired. Help me to the couch, and you two can clean up this mess while I rest. Clara moved to help her, but Mrs. Lynn waved her off. Noah does it. You keep sorting photos. And Lucas, bring me a dumpling. Noah supported her to the living room, shocked by how light she felt, how fragile. When had she gotten this frail? She settled on the couch with a sigh, and he covered her with the Afghan she kept draped over the armrest. "You did this on purpose," he said quietly, "getting us both here." "Of course I did. I'm dying, not stupid." She caught his hand. "Listen to me. That girl in there has spent 2 years convinced she's not worth loving because one man was an idiot. And you spent 3 years convinced you used up your chance at happiness. You're both wrong. We barely know each other. So get to know each other. Have a conversation. Be friends. See where it goes without deciding the ending before you've lived the middle." She squeezed his hand. "I won't be here much longer, Noah. Let me see you try, please." Noah looked back toward the kitchen, where Clara and Lucas were laughing about something, their voices mixing with the afternoon light streaming through the windows. What if it doesn't work? What if Lucas gets hurt? What if it does work? What if he gains something beautiful? You can't protect him from every potential pain. The best you can do is show him how to love anyway. Back in the kitchen, Clara had organized the photos into neat piles while Lucas built a fort out of empty albums. Noah started collecting teacups and plates, moving around the space with the familiarity of someone who'd done this many times. "She really loves you," Clara said. "Both of you. The feeling's mutual. I owe her more than I can ever repay. I don't think she's keeping score." Clara handed him a stack of photos. "These are for the album she wants to make for her daughter. The rest go back in the box." They worked in comfortable silence, the kind that felt natural rather than awkward. Lucas eventually abandoned his fort and declared he was going to explore the backyard, leaving Noah and Clara alone. "Can I ask you something personal?" Clara said, not looking up from the photos she was organizing. "Sure. When did you know you were ready to stop being angry?" Noah paused, thinking. "I'm not sure I'm there yet. Some days I wake up and I'm furious at Sarah for leaving, at the drunk driver who hit her, at the universe for being so random and cruel. Other days I just feel tired. I don't think grief has a finish line. No, but at some point we stop running the race, right? We sit down on the side of the track and decide the sprint is over." Clara finally met his eyes. "I spent so long being angry at my ex, at myself for not seeing the signs, at every happy couple I saw. The anger was easier than admitting I was just desperately lonely." "Are you still angry?" "Sometimes. But mostly I'm just tired of being alone and pretending I chose it." She smiled sadly. "Mrs. Lynn sees right through me. It's terrifying. She sees through everyone. It's her superpower." Lucas burst back through the door, cheeks flushed. "Dad, there's a bird's nest in the tree. Can we build a birdhouse at home, please?" "Maybe. We'll see." "You say that about everything." "Because it's the correct answer to most questions from 6-year-olds. Clara laughed. "He's got you there, Lucas." Lucas studied her for a moment, then delivered his verdict with characteristic bluntness. "I like you. You laugh at Dad's jokes and you don't talk to me like I'm a baby. Are you going to be his girlfriend?" "Lucas!" Noah felt his face go hot. "That's not appropriate." "It's okay," Clara cut in, her expression gentle. "That's a fair question, Lucas. The answer is no. I'm not your dad's girlfriend. We're just friends. Is that all right with you?" Lucas considered this. "I guess. Tyler's dad has a girlfriend and she's mean. She makes him eat vegetables all the time." "The horror," Clara said seriously. "Well, I promise if I'm ever around for dinner, I won't force vegetables on you." "See, Dad? She gets it." Noah shook his head, but he was smiling. "Come on, buddy. We should let Mrs. Lynn rest and get home. You've got reading homework." "Reading isn't homework. It's fun. Tell your teacher that. She'll appreciate it." They said their goodbyes, Lucas giving Mrs. Lynn a careful hug while she whispered something in his ear that made him giggle. Clara walked them to the door, her hands shoved in her pockets. "This was nice," she said. "Weird, but nice. Welcome to my life. Weird and nice in equal measure." Noah hesitated. "Would you want to do something next week? With Lucas, I mean? Maybe get lunch or go to the museum? As friends?" he added quickly. Clara's smile was slow and genuine. "I'd like that. Fair warning, though, I don't know anything about kids." "Neither did I 3 years ago. You'll figure it out." "That's encouraging." "Dad, come on. You said we had to go." Lucas was already halfway to the truck. "See you next week," Noah said, and Clara nodded, watching them leave with an expression he couldn't quite read. In the truck, Lucas was unusually quiet for the first few blocks. Then, "Dad, is Mrs. Lynn going to die soon?" Noah's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Yeah, buddy, probably. That's sad." "It is." "Will we still visit her, even when she's more sick?" "Of course. We'll visit as much as she wants us to." Lucas nodded, processing. "I think Clara is nice. She didn't lie to me about being your girlfriend. Tyler's dad's girlfriend always lies and says stuff like, 'We'll see,' when she means no. 'We'll see' doesn't always mean no. Dad, come on." "Yes, it does." Noah couldn't help laughing. "All right, you got me. Sometimes it does." "So, are you going to date Clara?" "I don't know, Lucas. It's complicated." "Why?" "How to explain adult fears to a 6-year-old? Because I'm scared. When Mom died, it hurt so much. I don't want either of us to hurt like that again." Lucas was quiet for a long moment. "But Mom wouldn't want us to be sad forever, right?" Noah's throat tightened. "No, she wouldn't." "Then maybe being scared is okay, but we should try anyway. That's what you tell me about school stuff." Out of the mouths of babes, Noah reached over and ruffled his son's hair. "When did you get so smart?" "I was always smart. You just don't always listen." That evening, after Lucas was in bed, Noah's phone buzzed. "Clara, your son is wise beyond his years and terrifying. How does he already understand emotional honesty better than most adults?" Noah smiled, typing back. "Single dad survival skill. I can't lie to him. He sees through everything." "That must be exhausting." "You have no idea, but it keeps me honest." A pause, then, "Can I be honest with you about something?" "Please." "I'm scared too. I told myself I was done with relationships, that I was better off alone. But spending time with you and Lucas today, I realized I've been lying to myself. I'm not better off alone. I'm just safer. And I'm tired of choosing safe over happy." Noah stared at the message, his heart beating faster. He thought about Mrs. Lynn's words, about Lucas's simple wisdom, about the way Clara had looked at him today, like he was someone worth knowing. "So what do we do?" he typed. "I have no idea, but maybe we figure it out together? Slowly, no expectations, just seeing what happens." "I can do slow." "Good, because I'm terrified of fast." "Same here." Another pause. "Noah? Thank you for today, for letting me be part of it. Thank you for showing up. I know this is weird. The best things usually are." Noah set down his phone and walked to the window, looking across at Mrs. Lynn's house. Her bedroom light was on, a small square of warmth in the darkness. He wondered if she was watching, if she knew she'd managed to push two stubborn, scared people towards something that might become real. The next week fell into a new rhythm. Clara stopped by Tuesday evening with books she thought Lucas might like, stayed for dinner that turned into 3 hours of conversation while Lucas showed her his entire collection of space facts. Thursday, she texted asking for advice about a bird feeder, which turned into a phone call that lasted until midnight, ranging from wildlife to childhood memories to the strange experience of rebuilding a life after loss. Saturday, they met at the Science Museum as planned. Lucas was initially shy, but Clara's genuine interest in his dinosaur knowledge won him over within the first exhibit. Noah watched them examine a Triceratops skeleton, Clara asking questions, and Lucas explaining with the authority of a 6-year-old who'd memorized every dinosaur fact in existence and felt something shift in his chest. Not quite hope, but maybe the possibility of it. They got lunch in the museum cafe, Lucas sitting between them and providing nonstop commentary on everything from the food quality to the architecture to why velociraptors were actually much smaller than movies showed them. "He doesn't stop talking, does he?" Clara said, amused. "Not since he learned how. The first year after Sarah died, he barely spoke. Now I think he's making up for lost time." "I like it. My house is too quiet. You should come over more then. We specialize in noise." Clara smiled. "I might take you up on that." After the museum, they walked Lucas around the park, letting him burn off energy before the drive home. Noah and Clara fell into step beside each other, not quite touching, but close enough that he was aware of her presence in a way that felt both comfortable and electric. "This is the longest I've spent with a kid since my nephew was born," Clara admitted. "I'm waiting for him to decide I'm boring." He asked this morning if you were coming with us. I think you're safe. Really? She sounded pleased and surprised in equal measure. Really? You're patient with his questions and you don't talk down to him. That matters to kids. I don't know how to talk down to people. Occupational hazard of hospice work, everyone gets treated like they're capable of handling the truth. It's a good quality. They reached the truck and Lucas climbed in without being asked, already yawning. Clara leaned against the door, her expression thoughtful. Can I see you again this week? Just us. I mean, no mediators, no 6-year-old chaperones. Noah's pulse quickened. Like a date? Like two people who enjoy each other's company, spending time together. Call it whatever you want. Okay, yes. When? Wednesday? There's a place near the hospital that does good Thai food. I could meet you after my shift. 7? Perfect. They stood there for a moment, neither quite ready to leave. Finally, Clara stepped back. Drive safe. And Noah? Thanks for this. All of it. Stop thanking me. I'm getting as much out of this as you are. Then we're both winning. On the drive home, Lucas fought sleep as long as he could, his questions getting progressively more nonsensical, until he finally gave up and dozed off. Noah glanced in the rearview mirror at his son's peaceful face and felt the familiar, fierce love mixed with terror. What was he doing, letting someone into their lives? What if this fell apart? What if Clara decided she didn't want the complexity of a ready-made family? What if Lucas got attached and then lost another person he cared about? But under the fear, something else was growing, something that felt dangerously like happiness. Monday afternoon, Noah stopped by Mrs. Lynn's to check on her and found Clara already there, helping her with physical therapy exercises. Mrs. Lynn looked weaker than the week before, moving with careful precision, her breathing labored. You're early, she said when Noah appeared. Or Clara's late. I can't keep track anymore. I'm on time, Clara said firmly. You're just impatient. I'm dying. I've earned the right to impatience. Noah set down the groceries he'd brought. How are you feeling? Like I'm dying. We've established this. But her eyes were bright as she looked between them. You two are different. Did something happen? We had lunch, Clara said. Well, lunch with Lucas at the museum. And we're having dinner Wednesday, Noah added. Mrs. Lynn's smile was triumphant. I knew it. I knew you just needed time. Don't get too excited, Noah warned. We're taking it slow. Slow is fine. Stopped is not. She settled back against the couch, exhausted from even minimal movement. I'm glad. You both deserve this. Clara helped her to bed for a nap, and when she returned to the kitchen, Noah was putting away groceries. They moved around each other easily, the space feeling less awkward than it had weeks ago. She's getting worse, Clara said quietly. The doctors are saying weeks now, maybe less. Does she know? She knows. She's ready, I think. As ready as anyone can be. Clara leaned against the counter. I've done this job for 5 years. I've held hands through hundreds of deaths, but this one's different. She matters to me. She matters to me too. I know. That's why I'm glad we found each other. When it happens, we'll both need someone who understands. Noah crossed to her, acting on instinct rather than thought, and pulled her into a hug. She stiffened for half a second, then melted against him, her arms coming around his waist. They stood like that for a long moment, two people holding each other up against the weight of anticipated loss. I'm scared, Clara whispered against his shoulder. Me too. But maybe scared together is better than scared alone. She pulled back enough to look at him, her eyes bright with unshed tears. This crazy? This whole thing? Probably. But I'm done with safe and lonely. Let's try crazy and together. Clara laughed, watery but genuine. Okay. Crazy and together it is. Wednesday arrived with rain that seemed determined to drown the city, the kind of relentless downpour that made Noah question why anyone chose to live in Seattle. He dropped Lucas at his friend Tyler's house for a sleepover, endured the knowing look from Tyler's mother when he mentioned he had dinner plans, and arrived at the Thai restaurant 15 minutes early, soaked despite his umbrella. Clara was already there, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups of tea, her hair damp and curling at the ends. She looked up when he entered, and her smile did something dangerous to his equilibrium. You're early. she said as he slid into the seat across from her. So are you. I was nervous. Early seemed better than pacing my apartment. Noah appreciated the honesty. I almost canceled 3 times. What stopped you? Lucas. He asked this morning if I was seeing Clara today, and when I said yes, he told me I should bring you flowers, because that's what people do on dates. Then he drew you a picture of a dinosaur in case I forgot the flowers. Clara's expression softened. Did you forget the flowers? They're in the truck. I chickened out bringing them in. Go get them. What? Go get them. I want to see what a 6-year-old thinks constitutes appropriate date flowers. Noah went back out into the rain, retrieved the slightly wilted grocery store bouquet and Lucas's carefully folded drawing, and returned to find Clara watching him with amusement dancing in her eyes. He handed both over, feeling absurdly self-conscious. She opened the drawing first. Lucas had rendered a T-Rex in green crayon with the caption, "For Clara from Lucas," and a row of hearts along the bottom. Clara stared at it for a long moment, then looked up with suspiciously bright eyes. This is the sweetest thing anyone's given me in years. He spent an hour on it, asked me how to spell your name 4 times. I'm keeping this forever. She set it carefully aside, then examined the flowers with theatrical seriousness. Daisies, classic choice. I approve. The gas station was out of roses. Daisies are better. Roses are trying too hard. She arranged them in the water glass, completely unbothered by the informality. There. Now this feels official. They ordered food neither of them would remember later, too focused on conversation that ranged from Lucas's latest school project to Clara's most difficult hospice cases to the strange experience of trying to date as adults carrying considerable baggage. The restaurant filled and emptied around them, rain drumming against the windows, and Noah realized with some surprise that hours had passed without the usual weight of grief pressing on his chest. Can I ask you something that might be too personal for a first date? Clara said, halfway through pad thai she'd barely touched. We're way past normal first date territory at this point. Fair. Okay, here goes. Do you still love her? Sarah, I mean, because I need to know if I'm competing with a ghost. The question landed like a stone in still water, sending ripples through everything Noah had been carefully not examining. He set down his fork, considering his answer with the honesty Clara deserved. Yes, I still love her, but it's different now. Less like an open wound, more like an old scar that aches when it rains. She was my wife, the mother of my child. That doesn't just stop. He met Clara's eyes. But she's gone. And I'm still here. And I'm tired of living like I'm waiting for permission to move forward. Clara nodded slowly. I needed to hear that. Not because I'm jealous of your past, but because I need to know you're not looking for a replacement. I can't be Sarah for you. I can only be myself. I don't want a replacement. Sarah and I worked because we grew up together, learned who we were as a unit. But I'm different now. Grief changed me. I need someone who knows this version of me, not the one who existed before loss. That's fair. And for the record, I don't want someone who's going to fix me or complete me or any of that romance novel nonsense. I want a partner who's equally broken and equally committed to doing the work. Noah smiled. We're really selling this, aren't we? Come date me. I'm damaged goods. Honestly, I trust damaged goods more than people who claim they're perfect. At least we know our weak spots. They talked until the restaurant staff started giving pointed looks at the clock. Noah paid despite Clara's protests, and they walked out into rain that had gentled to a persistent mist. The parking lot was nearly empty, their cars parked at opposite ends. I don't want this to end, Clara said, hugging herself against the cold. Then let's not end it. Come back to my place. Just to talk, Noah added quickly. Lucas is at a sleepover, the house is empty, and I make decent coffee. Clara studied him for a long moment. Okay, but I'm following you in my car because I need to be able to leave if this gets weird. That's probably wise. The drive home took 20 minutes through rain-slicked streets. Noah's mind raced the entire way, alternating between excitement and terror. What was he doing, inviting her to an empty house? What would they talk about without Lucas as a buffer? What if the easy conversation from dinner evaporated the moment they were alone in a more intimate setting? But when they got inside, when he'd made coffee and they'd settled on opposite ends of his couch, The awkwardness he'd feared never materialized. Instead, they fell into conversation that felt deeper and more honest than anything he'd managed in years. "Tell me about her," Clara said. "Not the sanitized version, the real one." Noah stared into his coffee. Sarah was stubborn, impossibly stubborn. She'd dig her heels in about the weirdest things and refuse to budge. We once didn't speak for 2 days because she insisted the correct way to load a dishwasher was bowls on the bottom rack, and I maintained that was insane. Who won? She did. She always did. But she was also kind in ways that mattered. She volunteered at a women's shelter, brought coffee to our elderly neighbors, remembered everyone's birthday. When Lucas was born, she made me promise we'd raise him to be gentle. That was her word, gentle. She wanted him to grow up understanding that strength and softness weren't opposites. Clara was quiet for a moment. "She sounds wonderful." She was. She was also messy, chronically late, and had a terrible habit of starting projects she never finished. Our garage is still full of half-done craft supplies. I can't bring myself to throw them out. "You don't have to, not until you're ready." That's the thing. I don't know if I'll ever be ready, but I also can't live in a museum of the past forever. Noah set down his cup. "Your turn? Tell me about your ex, the real version." Clara pulled her knees up, wrapping her arms around them. Derek was charming. That's what everyone saw, the successful lawyer with the perfect smile who said all the right things at parties. But at home, he was absent, not physically, but emotionally. I tried to talk about my day, about the patients I lost, about how hard hospice work could be, and he'd nod while scrolling through his phone. I felt invisible in my own marriage. "When did you realize it was over?" "The day I found out about the affair. Not because of the cheating itself, but because my first reaction was relief. I remember sitting in our bedroom, looking at the texts on his phone, and thinking, finally, I have permission to leave. That's when I knew we'd been over for a long time. We just hadn't admitted it. I'm sorry. Don't be. Best thing that ever happened to me, even if it didn't feel that way at the time. I learned I'd rather be alone than invisible." She looked at him directly. "That's why this scares me, Noah. You see me. You ask questions and actually listen to the answers. I'm not used to that. Then we're both out of our depth, because I'm not used to someone who doesn't need me to be okay all the time. You let me be sad or scared or confused without trying to fix it." They sat in silence for a while, the kind that felt comfortable rather than awkward. Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the city washed clean and quiet. Noah glanced at the clock and was startled to see it was past midnight. "I should go," Clara said, but she didn't move. "You should, but I don't want you to." "That's dangerous territory." "I know, but I'm tired of safe." Clara stood, and for a moment Noah thought she was leaving. Instead, she crossed to where he sat and held out her hand. He took it, let her pull him to his feet, and suddenly they were standing close enough that he could see the flecks of gold in her brown eyes. "I'm going to kiss you now," she said. "If that's okay." Noah's heart was pounding so hard he was certain she could hear it. "That's okay?" The kiss was gentle, tentative, a question rather than a statement. Clara's hand came up to cup his face, and Noah pulled her closer, 3 years of loneliness and fear and carefully controlled emotions suddenly overwhelming his restraint. The kiss deepened, became something urgent and necessary, and when they finally broke apart, they were both breathing hard. "Wow," Clara whispered. "Yeah. I should definitely go now." "Probably." But she kissed him again, and then again, and it was nearly 1 in the morning before she finally pulled away with obvious reluctance. "I'm leaving, right now, before I do something we're not ready for." Noah walked her to the door, to her car, kissed her one more time in the driveway like a teenager who couldn't bear to say goodnight. Finally, she drove away, and he stood in the cold watching her taillights disappear, feeling like someone had reached into his chest and restarted his heart after years of it just going through the motions. His phone buzzed before he even made it back inside. "Clara, I'm halfway home and I can't stop smiling. This is dangerous." Noah typed back, grinning like an idiot. "Tell me about it. I think I'm in trouble." "Good trouble or bad trouble?" "Too soon to tell. Ask me again tomorrow." "It is tomorrow. It's 1 in the morning." "Then ask me later today." I'm working a double shift at the hospital. Call me when you pick up Lucas? It's a date. Noah barely slept, his mind replaying the evening on an endless loop. When he did doze off, he dreamed of Sarah. But for the first time in 3 years, she wasn't dying. She was smiling, telling him something he couldn't quite hear, and when he woke at dawn, he had the strangest sense of having been given permission. He picked up Lucas at 10, enduring Tyler's mother's knowing smile, and pointed questions about whether he'd had a nice evening. Lucas bounced into the truck full of stories about the sleepover, barely pausing for breath. We stayed up until midnight. Tyler's dad made popcorn and we watched a movie about robots. And then we built a fort, and Tyler said his parents never let him stay up that late, but his mom said it was okay because it was special. Did you have fun with Clara? Noah hid a smile. I did, yeah. Did you kiss her? Lucas. What? Tyler's dad kisses his girlfriend all the time. It's gross, but Tyler says it means they like each other. That's complicated. That's adult for yes. Lucas looked enormously pleased with himself. I knew you liked her. Are you going to marry her? Buddy, we just started dating. Marriage is way down the road if it happens at all. But you want it to happen? Noah considered the question seriously. I don't know yet. I like her a lot. But these things take time. Okay. But just so you know, I like her too. She's nice and she doesn't pretend to know about dinosaurs when she doesn't. Tyler's dad's girlfriend does that, and it's annoying. I'll keep that in mind. They spent the afternoon doing laundry and cleaning the house, normal weekend tasks that felt less burdensome with Lucas's chatter filling the silence. Noah called Clara during nap time. Lucas insisted he was too old for naps, but he still crashed for an hour most weekends, and they talked in low voices about nothing and everything until her shift started. Monday brought Noah back to reality with the force of a freight train. The construction project he was managing hit a snag with permits. One of his crew members called in sick, and the client decided they wanted to change the entire design 2 weeks before deadline. By the time he picked up Lucas from school, he had a tension headache and exactly 0 patients left. Lucas sensed his mood and went quiet, doing homework without being asked and making himself scarce. Noah felt guilty about it, but didn't have the energy to fix it. He ordered pizza for dinner, let Lucas watch more TV than usual, and was getting him ready for bed when his phone rang. Mrs. Lynn's daughter, Michelle. Noah's stomach dropped. Hello? Noah, it's Michelle. I'm sorry to call so late, but Mom's asking for you. Her voice broke. The doctor says it's time. Can you come? I'll be there in 20 minutes. He hung up and looked at Lucas, already in pajamas. Buddy, we need to go to Mrs. Lynn's. She's very sick and she wants to see us. Lucas's eyes went wide. Is she dying? Like, right now? Maybe soon. I don't know. But we need to say goodbye, okay? Lucas nodded, solemn in the way children got when they understood something was serious, even if they didn't fully comprehend it. Noah called Tyler's mother, explained the situation, and dropped Lucas there with promises to pick him up as soon as he could. Mrs. Lynn's house was full of people when he arrived, Michelle and her husband, Clara, a hospice nurse he didn't recognize, and Mrs. Lynn herself, tiny and pale in her bed, but still fiercely present. Her eyes found Noah the moment he walked in. There you are. I was worried you wouldn't come. Noah crossed to her bedside, taking her fragile hand. Of course I came. Where else would I be? With your son, where you should be. He's safe, and he sends his love. Mrs. Lynn smiled. That boy is special. You remember that when things get hard. He's your North Star. Clara appeared at Noah's shoulder, her professional mask in place, but her eyes red-rimmed. She touched his arm briefly, a gesture of support, then moved away to check monitors and confer with the other nurse. Michelle stepped forward, her face ravaged by tears. Mom, do you want me to call Kevin and Sarah? Her siblings, Noah remembered, scattered across the country. They'll be here tomorrow. I'll wait. Mrs. Lynn's voice was weaker than Noah had ever heard it, but certain. Noah, come closer. He leaned in, and she gripped his hand with surprising strength. You promised me something. You take care of that girl, Clara. She's going to need you when I'm gone, and you need her whether you want to admit it or not. I promise. And you let yourself be happy. You hear me? Sarah is gone. You're not betraying her by living. You're honoring her by showing Lucas what love looks like." Noah's throat was too tight for words. He just nodded. "Good. Now go. I'm tired, and you're hovering." But she was smiling, and when he kissed her forehead, she patted his cheek with the tenderness she'd shown him since the day they met. Clara walked him out. On the porch, away from the others, she collapsed against him and finally let herself cry. Noah held her, his own tears coming now, both of them grieving the loss of the woman who'd brought them together. "I hate this," Clara said against his shoulder. "I hate that she's dying and there's nothing I can do. I hate that I'm supposed to be professional when all I want to do is scream." "Then scream. No one's here but me." But she didn't scream. She just clung to him and cried, and Noah held her and let his own tears fall, and they stood like that until the cold drove them back inside. Mrs. Lynn held on for 3 more days. Her children arrived, the house filled with family and memories, and the kind of vigil that happens when everyone knows the end is near. Noah visited every evening after putting Lucas to bed, sitting with Clara in the kitchen while Mrs. Lynn slept, or speaking quietly with Michelle about funeral arrangements and estate details he had no business being involved in, but helped with anyway because that's what you did for family. Clara barely left. She'd taken time off from her other clients, determined to be there for every moment. Noah watched her move between professional caregiver and grieving friend with a grace he found astounding, and loved her a little more each day for it. On the 3rd night at 2 a.m, Clara called him. "She's going. Can you come?" Noah was there in 15 minutes, having called his neighbor to stay with Lucas. The house was quiet, just Michelle and her husband, Clara, and the hospice nurse. Mrs. Lynn's breathing had changed, become labored and irregular, the sound everyone in the room recognized. Noah sat beside Clara, taking her hand. They didn't speak. Words felt wrong in the face of this, the simple, profound reality of a life ending. Mrs. Lynn's eyes were closed, her face peaceful, and Noah wondered if she was dreaming, if some part of her was already walking toward whatever came next. Michelle was crying quietly, her husband's arm around her shoulders. Clara sat rigid, her hand crushing Noah's, her professional training warring with personal grief. At 3:47 a.m, Mrs. Lynn took her last breath. The room went silent except for Michelle's soft sob. The nurse checked for a pulse, noted the time, and stepped back with the practiced compassion of someone who'd done this hundreds of times. Clara stood abruptly and walked out. Noah found her on the porch, arms wrapped around herself, staring at nothing. "She's gone," Clara said flatly. "I knew it was coming. I've watched dozens of people die. But it doesn't make it easier. No, it doesn't." She was interfering and stubborn and absolutely convinced she knew what was best for everyone. And she was right. She was right about us, Noah, about what we needed. And now she's gone, and I'm so angry and sad and grateful all at once, and I don't know what to do with any of it. Noah pulled her close. "We do what she asked. We take care of each other. We let ourselves be happy. We honor her by not wasting the gift she gave us." Clara pulled back to look at him, her face wet with tears. "What gift?" "Each other. She saw 2 people drowning in loneliness and threw us a lifeline. The least we can do is grab hold." They stood together in the pre-dawn darkness, holding each other against grief and uncertainty and the terrifying possibility of hope. Inside, Michelle was making phone calls. The nurse was completing paperwork. The machinery of death was processing another loss. But out here, Noah and Clara had each other. And in that moment, it was enough. The funeral was scheduled for the following week. Noah helped with arrangements while Clara handled the medical details and estate paperwork Mrs. Lynn had left in her care. They moved through those days in a fog, supporting each other when the grief became overwhelming, taking turns being strong when the other needed to fall apart. Lucas asked careful questions about death and heaven and whether Mrs. Lynn was happy now. Noah answered as honestly as he could, grateful for Clara's help explaining the unexplainable. She was patient with Lucas in ways that made Noah's heart ache, answering his questions without condescension, letting him feel his sadness without rushing him through it. The night before the funeral, Lucas couldn't sleep. Noah found him at midnight, sitting at the kitchen table with the drawing he'd made for Clara weeks ago. "Hey, buddy, what's going on?" "I want to make something for Mrs. Lynn. But she's not here to give it to. Noah sat beside him. What did you want to make? A picture of her garden. She showed me all the flowers and told me their names, and I want her to have that to remember. I think that's a beautiful idea. We can put it with the other things people are bringing to the funeral. Lucas nodded, then looked at his father with eyes too old for his age. Dad, are you and Clara going to be okay? Without Mrs. Lynn, I mean. I think so. We have each other now. Good. Because I like her, and I don't want her to leave too. She's not going anywhere, buddy. I promise. It was a promise Noah prayed he could keep, because losing Mrs. Lynn hurt, but the thought of losing Clara too felt impossible to bear. They'd been thrown together by circumstance and a dying woman's machinations, but somewhere along the way, it had become real. She'd become essential, and that terrified him almost as much as it gave him hope. The funeral took place on a gray Thursday morning, the kind of weather that felt appropriate for goodbyes. Noah stood in the back of the small church, Lucas's hand gripped tightly in his, watching people file in to pay their respects to a woman who'd touched more lives than he'd realized. Neighbors he'd never met, former students from her years teaching ESL classes, families she'd helped through the Immigrant Community Center, all gathered to remember someone who'd made quiet kindness her life's work. Clara sat in the front row with Michelle and her family, her shoulders straight and professional, but Noah could see the tension in the way she held herself. She hadn't slept in days, he knew. She'd been at his house until 3 in the morning going through Mrs. Lynn's final wishes, making sure every detail was honored, and when he'd suggested she needed rest, she'd looked at him with hollow eyes and said she couldn't stop moving or she'd fall apart. The service was simple, exactly what Mrs. Lynn had wanted. No religious overtones, just memories and music and the acknowledgement of a life well lived. Michelle spoke about her mother's strength, the way she'd immigrated to America at 19 with nothing but determination and built a life through sheer force of will. A former student spoke about her patience teaching English, how she'd made everyone feel capable even when they struggled. And then Michelle gestured to Noah. He hadn't expected to speak, but Lucas had insisted on sharing his drawing, and somehow Noah found himself walking to the front of the church, his son beside him, facing a room full of strangers and Mrs. Lynn's casket draped in white flowers. Mrs. Lynn was my neighbor, Noah began, his voice steadier than he felt. But she became much more than that. After my wife died, I was drowning. I had a toddler who needed me and grief that wouldn't let me breathe and no idea how to balance both. Mrs. Lynn just showed up one day with soup and sat on my porch until I came outside. She did that for weeks until I finally let her in. He looked down at Lucas, who was clutching his drawing. She taught my son that kindness doesn't require grand gestures, that showing up matters, that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is let people help us. And in her final months, she did something remarkable. She looked at 2 broken people and refused to let them stay that way. Noah's eyes found Clara. She was crying silently, hands clasped in her lap. She gave us permission to try again, to risk getting hurt because the alternative was living half a life. I'll never be able to repay that gift, but I can honor it by doing what she asked, by choosing to live fully, to love bravely, and to remember that isolation is a choice we don't have to make. Lucas stepped forward then, holding up his drawing of Mrs. Lynn's garden, every flower carefully labeled in his 6-year-old handwriting. Mrs. Lynn showed me her garden, he said in a small voice that somehow carried through the quiet church. She said every flower has a purpose, even the weeds. She said people are like that too, that everyone matters. I made this so she can remember her garden wherever she is now. There wasn't a dry eye in the building. Michelle came forward to take the drawing, promising it would be buried with her mother, and Lucas ran back to Noah's side. They returned to their seat while others spoke, and Noah felt the weight of finality settling over everything. After the service, people gathered at Mrs. Lynn's house for food and remembrance. Noah helped set up tables while Clara circulated with practiced grace, accepting condolences and making sure everyone felt welcome. He watched her move through the crowd, saw how she compartmentalized her grief to take care of others, and recognized the pattern because he'd done the same thing for 3 years. Lucas stayed close to Noah's side, uncharacteristically quiet, picking at food he didn't eat. Around them, people shared stories about Mrs. Lynn, her terrible jokes, her insistence on feeding everyone, the way she'd memorized everyone's birthdays and favorite foods. Noah listened to strangers describe the woman he'd known, and with each story, he felt the loss deepen. By early evening, the crowd had thinned. Michelle found Noah in the kitchen washing dishes while Lucas dozed on the couch. "You don't have to do that," she said gently. "I need to do something with my hands, otherwise I'll think too much." Michelle picked up a towel and started drying. They worked in silence for a few minutes before she said, "Mom talked about you constantly. You and Lucas and Clara. In her last weeks, you three were all she wanted to discuss. She was important to us. I know, and I'm grateful you were here for her when we couldn't be." Michelle set down a plate, her expression troubled. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Did she seem happy? At the end, I mean. My siblings and I, we feel so guilty that we weren't here sooner, that we let our lives keep us away. I need to know she wasn't lonely." Noah turned to face her fully. "Your mother was one of the most content people I've ever known. She had exactly the life she wanted, on her terms, in her home, surrounded by the community she built. And when she knew the end was coming, she spent her time making sure the people she loved would be okay without her. She wasn't lonely, Michelle. She was purposeful until the very last moment." Michelle's composure cracked. "Thank you. I needed to hear that." Clara appeared in the doorway, looking exhausted. "Michelle, your brother is asking about the estate paperwork." "Of course, I'll be right there." Michelle squeezed Noah's arm and left. Clara leaned against the doorframe, her professional mask finally slipping. "I can't do this anymore. I can't keep smiling and accepting sympathy and pretending I'm fine. I need to get out of here." Noah dried his hands. "Lucas is asleep on the couch. Let me get him to the truck, and I'll drive you home." "I don't want to go home. My apartment is too quiet and too full of her things. She gave me half her recipe collection last month, said she wanted me to have them, and I can't look at them without losing it." "Then come to my place. You can take the guest room, get some real sleep." Clara looked like she might argue, then nodded. "Okay. Yeah, thank you." They said quiet goodbyes to Michelle and the remaining family members. Noah carried Lucas to the truck, the boy barely stirring, and Clara followed in her car. The drive home felt longer than usual, weighted with grief and exhaustion. Inside, Noah got Lucas to bed while Clara stood in the living room looking lost. When he came back downstairs, she was staring at Sarah's photograph on the mantel. "She's beautiful," Clara said. "Lucas has her eyes." "He does. Sometimes it catches me off guard, seeing her looking back at me from his face." "Does it hurt?" "Sometimes. Other times it's comforting, like she's still here in some way that matters." Noah moved to stand beside her. "You should sit down before you fall down." "If I sit, I'll cry. If I cry, I won't stop." "Then cry. You've earned it." Clara's face crumpled. Noah caught her as her legs gave out, guided her to the couch, and held her while 3 days of repressed grief came pouring out. She cried like someone who'd been holding back too long, great shaking sobs that seemed to come from somewhere deep and wounded. Noah just held her, stroking her hair, murmuring meaningless comfort, and let her break because she'd been strong for everyone else and she needed this. Eventually, the tears slowed. Clara pulled back, her face blotchy and swollen. "I'm sorry, that was necessary. Don't apologize for being human. I'm supposed to be better at this. I do this for a living, helping people through death and grief. I should be handling this better." "You loved her. That's different than professional duty. It's supposed to hurt more." Clara nodded, wiping her face with shaking hands. "I keep thinking about what she said at the end, about taking care of each other. And I'm terrified, Noah. What if we only work because she was there pushing us together? What if without her, we fall apart?" Noah took her hands, making her look at him. "We won't. What started because of her became real despite her. I'm not with you out of obligation or guilt or to honor her memory. I'm with you because when I'm not, I miss you. Because you make me laugh and challenge me and see me for who I am now, not who I used to be. I'm a mess. I work terrible hours. I bring death home with me. I'm emotionally unavailable half the time. And I'm a single father with a 6-year-old and enough baggage to fill a cargo plane. We're both disasters, Clara. But we're disasters together, and somehow that makes it bearable." She laughed, watery but genuine. "When did you get so good with words?" About 30 seconds ago. I'm winging this entirely. Clara leaned forward and kissed him, soft and sweet and tasting of salt. When she pulled back, her eyes were clearer. Can I stay tonight? I don't mean anything more than just not being alone. I can't face my empty apartment right now. Of course. Guest room is yours as long as you need it. But when Noah woke at 3 in the morning to check on her, Claire was curled up on the couch under the blanket he'd left, still in her funeral clothes, her face peaceful in sleep. He covered her more carefully, turned off the lights, and went back to bed feeling like maybe they'd be okay after all. The next morning, Lucas woke before both adults. Noah found him in the kitchen making cereal, deliberately quiet so as not to wake Clara, who was still asleep on the couch. Is Clara living with us now? Lucas whispered. No, buddy. She just needed a place to stay last night. She was sad about Mrs. Lynn. Are you sad too? Very sad. Lucas considered this while eating his cereal. Tyler's mom said people go to heaven when they die. Is that where Mrs. Lynn is? Noah sat down, choosing his words carefully. Some people believe that. I think Mrs. Lynn would be happy wherever she is, as long as the people she loved are okay. Are we okay? We're getting there. Clara appeared in the doorway, looking rumpled and self-conscious. Sorry, I didn't mean to crash on your couch. You're welcome to crash any time, Noah said. Coffee? Please. They fell into an easy rhythm, Noah making breakfast while Clara helped Lucas with a puzzle, all of them moving around each other with a familiarity that felt both natural and fragile. After breakfast, Lucas went to play in his room, and Clara insisted on helping clean up. I need to go home, face my apartment, she said, washing dishes. But thank you for last night. I don't think I could have handled being alone. Anytime you need not to be alone, we're here. Clara set down the dish she was washing and turned to face him. I need to tell you something, and I need you to really hear me. Noah's stomach clenched. Okay. I'm falling in love with you. I know it's fast and complicated and probably terrible timing, but Mrs. Lynn dying made me realize life is too short to pretend I don't feel what I feel. And I'm terrified because I've been burned before and I have trust issues and I work with death every day, which makes me probably the worst romantic prospect ever. But there it is. I'm falling for you, and I needed you to know. Noah stared at her, his heart pounding. Then he crossed the kitchen, took her face in his hands, and kissed her with 3 years of loneliness and fear and hope all tangled together. I'm falling for you too, he said against her lips, and it terrifies me, because what if I screw this up? What if I'm not ready and I hurt you? What if Lucas gets attached and then something happens and I have to watch him lose another person he loves? What if none of that happens? What if we're good for each other? What if this actually works? Then I guess we find out together. They stood in his kitchen kissing like teenagers, and when Lucas wandered in and made exaggerated gagging noises, they laughed and broke apart, but didn't let go of each other's hands. The following weeks were strange. A period of adjustment where grief and new love existed in uncomfortable proximity. Clara spent more nights at Noah's house than her own, slowly integrating into their routine. She learned Lucas's bedtime preferences, mastered the art of packing school lunches that met his exacting standards, and figured out how to navigate the minefield of 6-year-old emotions. Noah learned Clara's work schedule, the way she needed silence after particularly hard shifts, her habit of cooking when she was stressed. He learned that she was fiercely independent and terrible at asking for help, that she loved old movies and Thai food, and had a weakness for rescue animals she couldn't actually adopt because her landlord didn't allow pets. Lucas adjusted faster than either adult expected. Within 2 weeks, he was asking when Clara was coming over and saving artwork to show her. Within a month, he'd started setting 3 places at the table automatically and referring to weekend plans as, "What are we doing?" instead of, "What am I doing with Dad?" It should have been perfect, but perfection required confronting the things they'd both been avoiding, and those conversations came whether they were ready or not. It happened on a Tuesday night, 6 weeks after Mrs. Lynn's funeral. Clara was cooking dinner while Noah helped Lucas with homework, and Lucas asked the question that changed everything. "Clara, are you going to be my mom?" The kitchen went silent. Clara froze, wooden spoon suspended over the pot. Noah felt his chest tighten. Clara set down the spoon carefully and came to crouch beside Lucas's chair. "That's a big question, Lucas." Can I ask what made you think about it? Tyler's dad got married to his girlfriend, and now she's Tyler's stepmom. And Tyler says it's weird, but also kind of nice because she makes better pancakes than his dad. You make good pancakes, too. Clara smiled, but her eyes were uncertain when they met Noah's. I'm not your mom, Lucas. You had a mom who loved you very much, and nobody can replace her. But I care about you a lot, and I'm going to keep being in your life if that's okay with you. Is that like being a stepmom, but different? Kind of. It's like being someone who loves you and wants good things for you, but understands that you already have a mom, even though she's not here anymore. Lucas thought about this seriously. Okay, that makes sense. Can we still have pancakes on Saturdays? Absolutely. Crisis apparently averted, Lucas went back to his homework. But after he was in bed, Clara and Noah sat on the porch, both of them carefully not looking at each other. I'm sorry, Clara said finally. I should have anticipated that question, had a better answer ready. You handled it perfectly, better than I could have. Did I, though? Because I saw your face, Noah. You looked terrified. Noah rubbed his hands over his face. I am. Not because you said anything wrong, but because Lucas asking that question means this is real. We're building something that matters to him, not just us. And if we screw this up, we hurt him. I know. I think about that constantly. Clara pulled her knees up, wrapping her arms around them. Maybe we're moving too fast. Maybe I should spend less time here, give everyone space to figure out what this is before we commit to more. Is that what you want? No. But what I want and what's best for Lucas might be different things. You're what's best for him, and for me. I know that's terrifying to hear, that it puts pressure on this, but it's true. You've made our lives better in every way that matters. Clara turned to look at him, her expression vulnerable. What if I can't be what you both need? What if I'm too damaged from my divorce, too closed off emotionally? What if I wake up one day and realize I can't do this, the parenting, the domesticity, all of it? Then we'll deal with it. Together. But you don't get to sabotage this because you're scared. We're both scared, Clara. That's part of the deal. I don't know how to do this. I've never had to consider someone else's kid before. Every decision I make now affects Lucas, and that's huge. You're already doing it. You think about him constantly. What he eats, whether he's happy, if we're handling his grief correctly. You're already in this whether you admit it or not. Clara stood abruptly, pacing the porch. I need you to understand something. My marriage failed because I was invisible, because I gave everything and got nothing back. I can't do that again, Noah. I need to know that this is partnership, not me just slotting into the life you already built. Is that what this feels like to you? Because that's not what I want. I want you to be part of building something new with us, not just fitting into what already exists. Then we need to talk about the big stuff. Really talk, not just dance around it. Clara stopped pacing, facing him directly. Where do you see this going? Because I need to know if I'm investing in something with a future or just prolonging the inevitable. Noah stood, closing the distance between them. I see you moving in properly, not just keeping clothes in my guest room. I see us merging our lives instead of maintaining separate existences. I see Lucas calling you by your name but knowing your family. I see marriage eventually, if we get there, but only when we're both sure. That's terrifying. I know, but it's also honest. I'm not playing house with you, Clara. I'm trying to build an actual life. And if that's too much too soon, I need to know now. Clara stared at him for a long moment, and Noah braced himself for rejection. Instead, she stepped forward and kissed him hard. It's not too much, she said when they broke apart. It's scary and complicated and probably going to be messy as hell, but it's not too much. I'm in, Noah, completely in. Just promise me we'll keep talking like this, even when it's uncomfortable. I promise. They went inside and made love for the first time since Mrs. Lynn's death, slow and tender, and waited with the knowledge that they were committing to something bigger than either of them. Afterward, Clara fell asleep in his bed instead of the guest room, and Noah lay awake watching her breathe, terrified and grateful in equal measure. The next morning, Lucas came into the bedroom without knocking and climbed onto the bed between them. If he was surprised to find Clara there, he didn't show it. Can we have pancakes now? Clara laughed, still half asleep. You're relentless about those pancakes. They're really good. Dad makes boring pancakes. Hey, Noah protested. My pancakes are perfectly adequate. Adequate means boring, Lucas informed him. Clara's have chocolate chips. Then I guess Clara's making breakfast. Noah kissed the top of his son's head, then met Clara's eyes over Lucas's blonde hair. She smiled, soft and sure, and Noah felt something settle in his chest. Not quite peace, but the beginning of it. They spent the morning together, the three of them moving through breakfast and lazy conversation, and it felt like a glimpse of what their future could be. Not perfect, not without complications, but real and warm and worth fighting for. Later, after Clara left to handle errands and Lucas was occupied with building blocks, Noah found himself standing in front of Sarah's photograph again. He picked it up, studying her face, and for the first time in 3 years, he felt ready to say something he'd been avoiding. "I'm letting you go," he whispered. "Not forgetting you, never that. But letting go of the guilt that says moving forward means betraying you. I think you'd like Clara. I think you'd be glad Lucas has her, and I think you'd tell me to stop overthinking and just be happy." He set the photograph down, not in the center of the mantel where it had been for 3 years, but slightly to the side, making room, moving forward, choosing life over grief. His phone buzzed. "Clara, I forgot to tell you this morning, but I love you. Seemed important to mention." Noah smiled, his chest warming. He typed back, "I love you too. Come back soon. Lucas is already asking about dinner. Tell him I'm thinking pasta. And Noah, thank you for taking a chance on me. Thank you for being worth the risk." Noah looked around his house, at Lucas's toys scattered across the floor, at the coffee cup Clara had left on the counter, at the small signs that their separate lives were becoming one shared existence, and felt something he hadn't allowed himself in 3 years. Hope. Real, terrifying, beautiful hope. 3 months after Mrs. Lynn's funeral, Noah woke to sunlight streaming through the bedroom window and Clara's arm draped across his chest. The guest room had been officially converted into an office 2 weeks ago when Clara moved in properly, her belongings slowly infiltrating every corner of the house until it stopped being his space and became theirs. The transition had been easier than either expected, though not without its challenges. Clara stirred beside him, blinking awake. "What time is it?" "Almost 7. Lucas will be up any minute demanding breakfast. Saturday pancakes, I remember." She stretched, then settled back against him. "I had the strangest dream. Mrs. Lynn was in my apartment, rearranging my furniture and telling me I was doing everything wrong." Noah smiled. "That sounds exactly like her. The weird part is, in the dream I wasn't annoyed. I was grateful, like she was still looking out for us." Clara's voice caught slightly. "I miss her." "Me too. Me." They lay in comfortable silence until footsteps thundered down the hallway, and Lucas burst through the door without knocking, a habit they'd failed to break despite numerous attempts. "It's Saturday. Pancakes! And Dad, Tyler's mom called your phone and said, 'Can I go to their house later to play?' And also, Clara, I finished the book you gave me, and it was really good. And can we go to the library to get the next one?" Clara laughed, sitting up. "Good morning to you too, Lucas. How about we handle one thing at a time, starting with you giving us 5 minutes to wake up before the interrogation." "5 minutes is boring. Can I start mixing the pancake stuff?" "No," Noah and Clara said simultaneously. Lucas sighed dramatically. "Fine, but I'm timing you." He marched out, and they heard him counting loudly in the hallway. "Our child is a tyrant," Clara said, then froze. "I mean, Lucas, your son, not our—" Noah kissed her, cutting off the spiral. "Our child sounds good to me. If you're okay with it." Clara's eyes went bright. Yeah, I'm okay with it." They made it downstairs before Lucas reached 300, which he declared was definitely more than 5 minutes, and therefore they owed him extra chocolate chips. Clara negotiated him down to a reasonable amount while Noah started the coffee, and they fell into the Saturday morning routine they'd built together over the past months. It wasn't always this easy. There had been fights about discipline strategies that didn't align, about Clara's work schedule pulling her away at inconvenient times, about Noah's tendency to make decisions without consulting her. There had been moments when Clara panicked about losing herself in domesticity, when Noah worried she'd realize she'd made a mistake and leave. when Lucas acted out because change was hard even when it was good. But they'd learned to talk through the hard parts instead of avoiding them, to apologize when they screwed up, to ask for space when they needed it, to show up for each other even when it was uncomfortable. And slowly, painfully, they'd built something that felt solid. After breakfast, Noah drove Lucas to Tyler's house while Clara tackled the mountain of laundry that seemed to regenerate overnight. When he returned, he found her folding clothes in the living room, her phone propped on the couch playing music. Tyler's mom invited Lucas for a sleepover, Noah said, dropping onto the couch beside her. Apparently, the boys have been planning an epic Lego construction project. So we have the evening to ourselves? And tomorrow morning, she said she'd take them to church and then out for lunch. We don't have to pick them up until 2. Clara set down the shirt she was folding, a smile playing at her lips. A whole evening and morning without a 6-year-old. Whatever will we do with ourselves? I have some ideas. She laughed, swatting him with a sock. Down, boy. I actually wanted to talk to you about something. Noah's stomach clenched. Those words never led anywhere good. Okay. Clara turned to face him fully, her expression serious. Michelle called me yesterday. Mrs. Lynn's estate is fully settled, and she wanted me to know that her mother left me something in the will. That's good, right? It's the house, Noah. She left me the house. Noah stared at her. What? The house next door. She left it to me, along with a letter explaining that she wanted us to have it, that she hoped we'd fill it with love and family the way she and Mr. Lynn did. Clara's hands were shaking slightly. I don't know what to do. It's too much. I can't accept something like that. Did Michelle seem upset about it? No, actually. She said her mother had discussed it with her and her siblings months ago, that they all agreed it made sense. They're dividing the rest of the estate equally, and they don't need the house. But Noah, it's an entire house. That's not a small gift. Noah thought about Mrs. Lynn's careful plotting, the way she'd orchestrated their meeting, her determination to see them happy. This was exactly the kind of thing she'd do, one last grand gesture to ensure they had everything they needed. What do you want to do? He asked carefully. Clara looked toward the window, toward the house next door that held so many memories. Part of me wants to sell it immediately because accepting it feels like too much obligation, but another part of me thinks about what we could do with it. We could rent it out, use the income for Lucas's college fund, or we could… She stopped, her cheeks coloring. Could what? We could live there. Move into a bigger space, let Lucas have his own room that isn't right next to ours, have space for a home office for both of us, maybe a guest room for when your parents visit. Build our own life there instead of trying to fit me into the one you built with Sarah. Noah felt his chest tighten. Is that what it feels like? That you're just fitting into Sarah's life? Sometimes, not all the time, and not in bad ways necessarily. But this house has her fingerprints all over it, Noah. The paint colors she chose, the garden she planted, the memories you built together. And I respect that. I do. But sometimes I wonder if we need a fresh start. Somewhere that's ours from the beginning. Noah hadn't thought about it that way, but she was right. He'd brought Clara into the life he'd shared with Sarah, expecting her to slot in seamlessly, never considering that she might need to build something new rather than inherit something old. You're right, he said quietly. I've been asking you to live in a museum without realizing it. I'm not asking you to erase Sarah. Lucas should grow up with her memory all around him. I just think maybe we could create new memories somewhere else, and this house could stay his connection to his mother without being our whole life. So we move next door, keep this house for Lucas, fill it with Sarah's things, let him have that space when he needs it, and we build our life in Mrs. Lynn's house. Clara nodded. What do you think? Noah stood and walked to the window, looking at the house that had been his sanctuary for 3 years. Mrs. Lynn on her porch, watching over them. The garden where Lucas played while she told stories about growing up in Shanghai. The kitchen where she'd fed them countless meals and engineered their relationship with the subtlety of a freight train. I think she knew exactly what she was doing, he said finally. I think she understood better than we did what we'd need, and I think we should accept it, move forward, start fresh while honoring what came before. Clara came to stand beside him, taking his hand. Are you sure? This is a big decision. I'm sure. Besides, Lucas will love having two houses. He can run between them like he owns the whole block. She laughed, leaning against him. When do we tell him? Tonight, when we pick him up tomorrow, after we've had our kid-free evening to celebrate properly. Celebrate what exactly? Noah turned to face her, his heart pounding. He'd been carrying the ring in his pocket for 2 weeks, waiting for the right moment. Maybe there was no such thing as a perfect moment. Maybe you just had to create one. Celebrate the fact that I love you, that you've changed my life in ways I didn't think were possible, that you walked into our chaos and made it better instead of running away. He pulled the small box from his pocket, watching Clara's eyes go wide. That I want to spend the rest of my life building something beautiful with you. Noah, I know we've only been together a few months. I know it's fast, but I also know that life is short and uncertain. And when you find someone who makes you want to be brave, you don't let them go. So Clara Evans, will you marry me? Clara's hands flew to her mouth, tears spilling over. Are you insane? We've been living together for less than 3 months. We're still figuring out how to merge our lives. I still sometimes sleep in what used to be the guest room when I'm having a bad day. Is that a no? That's a yes, you impossible man. Yes, I'll marry you, even though you're rushing this and we should probably wait and be sensible and... Noah kissed her, cutting off the spiral of anxiety, and felt her melt against him. When they broke apart, he slipped the ring onto her finger, a simple band with 3 small stones that had belonged to his grandmother. It's perfect, Clara whispered, staring at it. But Lucas, we need to talk to Lucas before we make this official. He gets a say in this. Agreed. Tomorrow, we tell him together. About the house, about the engagement, all of it. They spent the evening in a bubble of happiness, cooking dinner together and slow dancing in the kitchen to music from Clara's phone. They made love with the urgency of people who'd almost missed their chance and fell asleep tangled together, the ring catching the moonlight on Clara's finger. The next afternoon, they picked up Lucas from Tyler's house and drove him to the park instead of going straight home. He chattered about his sleepover, the Lego creation that was apparently going to be a spaceship, and how Tyler's dad made terrible pancakes that weren't nearly as good as Clara's. At the park, they found a quiet bench while Lucas played on the swings. Noah and Clara sat on either side of where Lucas would sit when they called him over, both nervous. You ready for this? Clara asked. No, but let's do it anyway. They called Lucas over, and he ran up looking concerned. Am I in trouble? Because if this is about the syrup I spilled on Tyler's carpet, his mom said it was fine. You're not in trouble, buddy, Noah said, making room for Lucas between them. We need to talk to you about some big changes. Lucas's eyes went wide. Are you and Clara breaking up? Because Tyler's parents are divorced and he says it's not that bad, but he seems really sad sometimes. No, Clara said quickly, taking his hand. The opposite, actually. We're getting married. Lucas blinked, processed, then launched himself at Clara with enough force to nearly knock her off the bench. Really? You're going to be my family for real? Clara hugged him back, her voice thick. I'm already your family, Lucas. This just makes it official. Can I call you Mom? Clara pulled back to look at him, tears streaming down her face. You have a mom. She loved you very much, and you should always remember her. But if you want, you could call me something else. Whatever feels right to you. Lucas thought about this seriously. What about Clara Mom? Like how Tyler has a mom and a stepmom, but they're both important? That works for me. If it works for your dad. Noah nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. Cool. Lucas seemed to consider this settled. Can we get a dog now? Because if we're a real family, we should have a family dog. Noah and Clara exchanged glances. We'll discuss it, Noah managed. That means maybe yes, Lucas crowed. This is the best day ever. There's more, Clara said. You know Mrs. Lynn's house next door? Yeah, it's been empty since she died. It's kind of sad. Well, she left it to me in her will, and your dad and I were thinking we could move there. Start fresh in a new house, but stay in the same neighborhood. What do you think? Lucas's face scrunched in thought. But what about our house? I don't want to leave it. We're not selling it, Noah explained. We'd keep it. It would still be yours. All your mom's things would stay there, and you could visit whenever you wanted. But we'd live next door in a bigger house with more space. So I'd have 2 houses. Exactly. That's so cool. Tyler only has 1 house, and he has to share a room with his brother. I'd have like 3 rooms probably. That's not how it works, Noah said, but he was smiling. But yes, you'd have your own room in the new house, and you could decorate it however you want. Lucas was vibrating with excitement. Can I have space stuff? And can we paint it dark blue like the night sky? And can we get those glow-in-the-dark stars? We can do all of that, Clara promised. But it'll take time. We have to fix up Mrs. Lynn's house first, make it ours. It's a big project. I can help. I'm really good at helping. They spent the next hour at the park, while Lucas pelted them with questions about the wedding, the house, the potential dog that Noah was already resigned to getting. His enthusiasm was infectious, and by the time they headed home, Noah felt lighter than he had in years. That evening, after Lucas was in bed, Noah and Clara sat on the porch of Mrs. Lynn's house with the keys Michelle had dropped off earlier. The place looked lonely in the twilight, but Noah could see the potential: fresh paint, new furniture, their lives taking shape within these walls. We're really doing this, Clara said, leaning against him. Getting married, moving houses, becoming a family, having second thoughts? Terrified thoughts, but not second thoughts. She turned to look at him. I never thought I'd get this. A partner who sees me, a child who accepts me, a home that feels right. It's more than I knew how to ask for. Same. For 3 years, I thought my life was over in any way that mattered, that I'd just be going through motions until Lucas grew up and left. Then a nosy neighbor decided to meddle, and everything changed. I wish she could see this, see us making it work. I think she knew we would. That's why she did it. Noah pulled Clara closer. She gave us permission to try. The least we can do is make it count. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars come out over Seattle. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. Lucas's bedroom light was still on, probably reading past his bedtime. The world kept spinning, indifferent to their small happiness, but that made it more precious somehow. The next few months were chaos. They planned a small wedding for late summer, just family and close friends in Mrs. Lynn's garden. Clara insisted on inviting Michelle and her siblings, wanting to honor the woman who'd brought them together. Lucas appointed himself unofficial wedding planner, offering opinions on everything from flowers to music to whether they should have a chocolate fountain. Simultaneously, they renovated Mrs. Lynn's house. Noah handled most of the construction work himself, with help from his crew on weekends. Clara managed the design decisions, thoughtfully incorporating elements that honored Mrs. Lynn's memory while making the space their own. They painted Lucas's room dark blue and filled it with glow-in-the-dark stars. They converted Mrs. Lynn's old sewing room into Clara's home office. They knocked down a wall to open up the kitchen, creating space for the kind of family dinners they wanted to share. It wasn't easy. There were budget overruns and construction delays. There were moments when Clara broke down crying because choosing paint colors felt like erasing Mrs. Lynn's presence. There were nights when Noah lay awake worried they were moving too fast, changing too much, risking the stability Lucas needed. But there were also moments of perfect clarity, like when Lucas helped them plant new flowers in Mrs. Lynn's garden, his small hands carefully patting dirt around roots while he narrated stories about what each flower might say if it could talk. Or when Clara found a box of Mrs. Lynn's recipe cards and spent a weekend cooking through them, filling the house with familiar smells and new memories. Or when Noah walked through the renovated space and realized it felt like home in a way nothing had since Sarah died. The wedding took place on a perfect August afternoon. Clara wore a simple cream dress and carried daisies from the garden. Lucas wore a tiny suit and took his ring-bearer duties with utmost seriousness. Noah stood under an arch they'd built together, watching Clara walk toward him, and felt Sarah's presence like a blessing rather than a ghost. Michelle gave a short speech about her mother's gift for seeing what people needed before they knew themselves. Lucas interrupted the ceremony to announce that he'd decided to call Clara CC, which stood for Clara Mom, but was easier to say. The officiant had to pause for laughter. When Noah kissed his bride, Lucas cheered louder than anyone. They danced in the garden as the sun set, ate cake that Lucas had helped decorate, and celebrated surrounded by people who loved them. It was small and imperfect, and exactly right. That night, after the guests left and Lucas finally crashed in his new bedroom, Noah and Clara stood in the doorway of their house, truly their house now, and surveyed the beautiful mess they'd created. We did it, Clara said softly. We actually built something real. with a lot of help from a stubborn neighbor who refused to mind her own business. Clara laughed. I hope wherever she is, she's satisfied with her handiwork. I think she's probably planning our next 30 years, knowing her. They moved through the house, turning off lights, checking that Lucas was really asleep. In their bedroom, the room that had been Mrs. Lynn's but was now theirs, they got ready for bed with the comfortable intimacy of people who'd learned each other's rhythms. As Noah drifted toward sleep, Clara's voice pulled him back. Noah? Thank you. For being brave enough to try. For letting me in even when it was scary. For giving me a family when I'd given up on having one. Noah pulled her closer. Thank you for showing up. For staying when it got hard. For loving us. Both of us. Even when we made it difficult. We're going to screw this up sometimes, Clara murmured against his shoulder. We're going to fight and make mistakes and have days where we wonder what we were thinking. Probably. But we'll figure it out together. That's what families do. Clara fell asleep first, her breathing evening out into the gentle rhythm Noah had learned to find comforting. He lay awake a while longer, thinking about the strange path that had led them here. A car accident that stole his wife. A divorce that left Clara certain she was better off alone. A neighbor who saw what they couldn't and refused to let them waste their second chances. Life was random and cruel and sometimes unbearably hard, but it was also unexpectedly generous, offering hope when you'd stopped looking for it, bringing people into your orbit exactly when you needed them most. Noah thought about Lucas sleeping in his space-themed room, dreaming of astronauts and dinosaurs, and the adventure of having two houses. He thought about Clara beside him, her ring catching the moonlight, her presence transforming his understanding of what home meant. He thought about Sarah, hoping she'd approve of the life he was building, the way he was honoring her memory while moving forward. And he thought about Mrs. Lynn, who'd looked at two broken people and seen the possibility of something whole, who'd meddled and plotted and orchestrated their happiness with the determination of someone who knew her time was limited and refused to waste it. A year ago, Noah had been convinced his life was over in any meaningful sense, that he'd just be marking time until Lucas grew up, going through motions, protecting himself from any possibility of more loss. Now he was married to a woman who challenged him and supported him in equal measure. He was raising a son who understood that families could take many shapes. He was living in a house filled with love and laughter and the beautiful chaos of actually living instead of just surviving. It wasn't the life he'd planned. It wasn't the fairy tale ending where everything worked out perfectly and no one ever got hurt. It was better. It was real. Noah closed his eyes and let sleep claim him, Clara warm beside him, Lucas safe down the hall, both of them gifts he'd stopped believing he deserved until a stubborn neighbor had insisted otherwise. Somewhere, he imagined Mrs. Lynn smiling, satisfied with her final matchmaking success. She'd promised to haunt them if they wasted their second chance. Instead, she'd given them permission to live again, and they were finally, gratefully, taking it.